Hello everybody and welcome to the United Stand. Last week it was what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer got right against Manchester City. This morning it's about what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer got wrong against Everton. A few key quotes from him yesterday after the game. Today the tempo of the ball wasn't good enough. I've really enjoyed it. His first year here. We're on the right track. We've taken a few steps forward. Today was a standstill. And asked about Erling Haaland, he knows what he wants to do and knows what he is going to do. And I'd start off with that and say, look, it is a year of Ole being in charge, more or less. We're on the right track, apparently. Interesting, isn't it? We're talking about what he got wrong. Mourinho was sacked virtually, 18th, I think it was, of December, so virtually a year to the day. He was sacked after 17 games with 26 points. Manchester United sit in the Premier League with 17 games played on 25 points. We're a point worse off than we were under Jose Mourinho a year ago. And people will quantify that by saying it's a totally different scenario. It's a totally different scenario because Mourinho was in his third year. Well, Ole's in a year now. And where is the progress? Where was the acceptance that we needed to go backwards to go forward? I felt we sacked Mourinho because we were going backwards. There was never any reason to go even further backwards. We were pretty backwards under Mourinho. That's why he was sacked. So, and these people who say it's not Ole's fault, he needs more transfers. Well, he's been here a year and we have dropped points to Villa, Everton, Sheffield United, Southampton, West Ham, Crystal Palace, Newcastle, Bournemouth. Off the top of my head, there's probably more. This season, yes, we need to spend money. I personally think we can't trust this team. We need to spend about 500 million. That's been the case for a few years. But I expect a little bit of tactical nous against those teams I've just listed. And this squad is certainly better than those results. So there has to be some responsibility from Ole in relation to that. And I would also say this. The consistency is where it's going wrong. We've said this before, but we beat Mourinho at Spurs. Sit down, Mourinho. Take the L, Mourinho. Ole schooled Mourinho, right? Who is where in the league? Mourinho is now above Ole. What would you rather do? Win the battle or win the war? And this is the problem. We can beat Pep on our day. We can beat Mourinho. We can stop Klopp winning. But we can't beat Ferguson. We can't beat Eddie Howe. We can't beat Pellegrini. We can't beat Roy Hodgson. He can beat us. So consistency is what winners are all about. And Manchester United struggle with this. And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has got to do something about it because it's become a consistent part of his reign. He's been here a year and 75% of that time we have been very inconsistent. Looking at the game yesterday, he's come out and said that Erling Haaland knows what he's going to do. It looks like we're going to sign Erling Haaland. Ole's obviously learning very, very quickly from Woodward what you do when you have a bad result. You chuck a bit of positivity in the air and everyone forgets the bad result. Erling Haaland is very welcome to Manchester United. He will give us a different angle. He's tall. He gives us hopefully a plan B. But I'll tell you what, if he is the only signing we're going to make in January, the big problem Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has had and what he got wrong against Everton is he doesn't have a number 10. He's got two midfielders in Fred and McTominay who will work really hard, but they're limited in their creativity. He hasn't got a number 10. He's got Andreas Pereira, Juan Mata and Jesse Lingard, and I don't think any of them are good enough to play for a top 6 club. That is where we are failing. He's got Rashford, who I thought, and Martial, who I think are very good players, and they're starved of anything decent. They should be getting one-on-ones. They should be getting decent chances. They're not getting them. They shouldn't be creating them on their own. Look at De Bruyne yesterday to Sterling, tapping. That's what a number 10 does, and United don't have one. And this goes back to the summer, and this will go to January as well. If we buy a striker, Erling Haaland, fantastic signing, but when are we going to address the real problem with the team? And what we got wrong yesterday against Everton, and what we've been getting wrong a lot this season, is that when a team sits back against us, plays that deep lying, plays deep against us with 2 banks of 4, and we have the ball, United are like a boring jigsaw puzzle. You know all the pieces, and you know it's not going to be a nice picture in the end. The amount of times I see Manchester United on the ball, they get it, they take a touch and they pass it. It's so laboured. There's no fluidity. There is no spark. And if we don't lose the ball, it's just side to side, backwards, side to side. We need some creativity in that team. And the biggest sign of that yesterday, and where we really got it wrong, because one of the things that was right about yesterday was Mason Greenwood. The goal he scored was fantastic, but it was out of nothing. there was no tactical genius there. He sent Mason Greenwood on. Mason Greenwood should have started the game. He scored 2 goals and got an assist on Thursday night. He should have started the game. That was the biggest mistake Ole Gunnar Solskjaer made. And I stand here as one of the fans who did say it. It's on my preview. He should start. So I'm not flip-flopping. I'm not saying it after. I said it on Friday night on the Everton preview that Mason Greenwood should start. He didn't start. He came on and he saved us a point. He should have started. When you've got players in form, you play them. He should have started. But what the real problem with Manchester United is, Mason Greenwood gets that goal and we have 10 minutes to attack the Stretford end and open this door that Chelsea have opened to us for top 4, and we didn't create one decent chance in the last 12 minutes after getting 1-1 because we can't beat the low block. That's the word I was looking for. We can't beat the low block. So even though Mason Greenwood pulls that goal out of nowhere and we think, yes, we're going to suck that goal into the Stretford end, we still can't do it because we haven't got the creativity. And Watford will do it, and Burnley will do it, and Newcastle will do it. And they will sit there, and I would expect we will drop points in one of those 3 games, even though we should win all 3. And this is the big problem. And what I also want to say as well, and this is something that I think needs to be said, there's a lot of players who get, I feel, unjustified criticism. Luke Shaw, who basically stopped it going to 2-0 yesterday. Lindelof, who was just unlucky on the goal, and I think he's been better than Maguire for the last 3 games. And yeah, the number 10s get a lot of criticism because they're just not good enough. I accept that. But Dan James... Why is Dan James starting games for Manchester United? I like him. He's very quick. He really, really tries. But he has been pretty inconsistent for a month. Mason Greenwood should start for Manchester United. This is the biggest thing Ole Gunnar Solskjaer got wrong yesterday. Dan James, what a player he would be off the bench. And what I don't understand about Dan James, and I say this is where Solskjaer is getting it wrong. When we bought Dan James, £15 million from Swansea, he was meant to be, and we all said it, he's a player that will see how he does. He's a bench player, not too much pressure. Let's just see how he goes. He straight away became a first-team player from being a championship winger. He's looking like a player that is slightly out of his depth at the moment because he's being expected to produce week in, week out. And I just think he should be on the bench for a couple of games. I think he's got great potential, but that shot from Luke Shaw where it comes to Dan James and he takes Lingard's head off, if Lingard's head wasn't there, it was going into the crowd and he should have scored it. So... I like Dan James. In no way am I criticising him. But if we are going to look at, oh right, Lingard was terrible yesterday, Mata was no better, Pereira's no good in that role, I don't really see Dan James at the moment being good enough to start games. And I see Mason Greenwood being absolutely perfect for it. And he, yesterday, saved us a point. So I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer yesterday, the possession football is non-existent in relation to there is no composure, there is no fluidity, and we seem unable to create really good chances. You've got Rashford, who clearly still is in banging form. You've got Martial, if you give him a chance, he'll score it. You've got Greenwood, who will get a chance out of nothing. There's 3 players there who'll score your goals. We've got to start finding them the chances to score goals. Because if a team sits back against us on the low block, we're not going to get these breaks into pace that Rashford and Martial and James can run into and Lingard can spin into. We've got to be smarter than that. And the sad thing is, we've learnt nothing. And that would be my bottom line. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has learnt nothing from all the mistakes of this season. Forget last March and Cardiff and Huddersfield, that's gone. This season, he's not learning enough from the mistakes that keep happening week in, week out. But what we have learnt is that we can't trust this team. It needs an overhaul as far as I'm concerned, and the weak mentality is now infecting our new players. You can see it in Wan-Bissaka and Dan James and Harry Maguire. They're becoming accustomed to this. You know, they're becoming part of this epidemic within the Manchester United squad, which is we can raise it for the big game, but as soon as it goes down to a mid-table club, we might turn up, we might not. It's not acceptable. It wasn't acceptable yesterday. There is no excuse for that. And Mourinho, despite us beating Mourinho at Spurs and sit down Mourinho, 2 games later he's above us in the league. That's embarrassing. I saw this for years with Manchester United when we were decent under Sir Alex Ferguson. You turn up to Everton or you turn up to Barnsley in them days or Swindon or whoever, and they'd play us like it was their bloody cup final. And sometimes they'd beat us and sometimes they'd get a draw. The very next week they'd play somebody crap and lose 3-0. And you'd go, I can't believe that. They play us like it's a cup final, and the next week when it's not such a big game, they go and lose. But we've become that. We've become that team that we play the cup finals like Man City and Liverpool and Mourinho, and then the very next week we'll go and lose to a West Brom or we'll draw with an Everton and we're down tools again. It's embarrassing. For a club like Manchester United, it's embarrassing. And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, is getting this wrong, and he's got to get it right. And he keeps coming out and saying, we're on the right track. These lads are great. They're brilliant in training. Well, I tell you what, somebody's lying, because there is a massive problem. This is a consistent issue at Manchester United, that we keep failing against teams that it just displays a laziness, a lack of strong mentality, a lack of a backbone. And we've never had that problem before. So we need to stop talking about the future. We need to stop talking about what a great set of lads they are. We need to stop talking about being on the right track. And we need to stop talking about signing strikers. We need midfielders. We need a stronger mentality, and we need an acceptance that this is not good enough. And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer coming out and saying it was one of those days, it was a bit of a standstill, we're on the right track. We've had one of these days too many times, Ollie. It's not right, it's wrong, and you need to sort it out. Watford, Newcastle, Burnley, 9 points. It's got to be 9 points, but it should have been 12 with Everton. So confidence has been knocked. It's just very, very disappointing. Very disappointing indeed. And I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has some responsibility in that, but so do the players. And of course, I keep saying it, this club needs £500 million spending on it competently. We need a whole rebuild of that team. 3 or 4, 5, 6 of those players can be part of it, but we still need about 6 or 7 players to come in, and they've got to be the right players. We lack mentality, we lack leadership, and we lack creativity, and that's the scariest thing. Thanks everyone for watching. Get your comments in below. I'll see you live tonight at 8 o'clock.